Welcome to a special episode of Off the Cuff. I'm Kurt Radel, Waycross Community Media Coordinator. And with us today is Scott Falkowski, who's the Public Works Director for the City of Forest Park. Scott, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And we are delighted to have you here today on this special episode. Tell us, first of all, what your duties are.
So as the Public Works Director, also in charge of stormwater itself. Streets, public works, drainage throughout the city, a whole lot of tasks that are involved in that. So repaving the streets, keeping them clean, sidewalks, also anytime it rains, making sure that you're not flooding into the yards, things like that. So handling those and all of our fleet, making sure we have the vehicles out there that can handle snow plows in the winter and the things in the spring to get ready for flowers and mulching, taking care of the lawns, make sure everything looks pretty too.
Now let's talk about some of the 2023 street projects.
Sure. So this year we had, one of them was a carryover project. So we had a very large project that was based on some grants from SORTA, which is the Metro bus system. So Winton Road, Kemper Road, and Kemper Meadow Road started last year. A very large project that was included doing some curb work and repaving of the roads. But one of the big things is, since it's on the bus route, and part of that project is some new bus stops, shelters, including bicycle racks, and they've actually moved a couple of those stops to make it more efficient for the bus riders. That is coming to a conclusion right now, and we are to the phase of they are getting ready to make the final pavement on that. So here by the end of the month, we should have nice new paved roads for those three.
What about the number of riders for the buses? Are you seeing an increase in that, the usage of them?
So yes, throughout the city, there is an increase in usage. One of the things that helps is the visibility of where these stops are and where they're located as well. So we've had meetings with SORTA about those kind of things, and they're starting some new programs too about some of the ridership throughout the city, the smaller kind of buses that are coming up where you can call and get a ride, almost like a local Uber type ride, but through SORTA, just locally. So they are doing things to try to increase the ridership and become more visible, and these kind of projects are really helping out.
And not as expensive as a Uber driver.
Correct.
Now, what about the 2023 annual street programs that you have?
Sure. So the standard program, we did 3 streets this year. So Smiley, Flagler, and Lincolnshire. We did what's called a mill and fill. So you grind off a couple inches of the existing asphalt and replace some of the curb that's in disrepair. And we came through and repaved those roads. So those were some of the worst roads that we had. So that we can usually do about 2 or 3 of those kind of roads a year based on budget. Our budget is based on the general fund, the gas tax, and then sometimes some grant funding and also the stormwater funds. Everybody pays their stormwater utility fund monthly, and that goes into a pot that helps do some of the drainage work on the streets and then also some of the detention basins throughout the city itself.
Now, when you complete a project like this, how many years do you project it'll be before you have to go back and do it again?
So we always try for about a 20-year lifespan. It's hit or miss with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it depends on the street itself, the drainage on the street. That's one of the biggest things that causes a road to fail, is if water gets down underneath that pavement. It'll cause it to heave or crack, those kinds of things. So the city itself has a lot of clay, so water doesn't drain down as well as you would like in some of the other cities. So what we have to do is keep an eye on that. We do a yearly analysis of the streets. We call them the PCRs, the pavement condition ratings. And we look for things like the drainage, how many cracks are in the street. And that's how we determine which ones are the worst, so which ones we can actually do. So sometimes it ranges from like 15 years that we need to do it up to some of them last 25 years. We just try to keep them in cycle to be able to get through them all. and hit the worst ones and as the budget allows.
Now, that would be for road usage. Some roads are used more often than others. But also, what about the impact of having severe winter weather and also severe, and we've had some heat that is really hot. And when you have those extreme conditions, does that play an issue with the roads?
It definitely does. And Forest Park is a tree city. So you'll see a lot of the streets have trees right there at the back of the curb. And that's one of the things that helps, having the shade on the streets. Gives it a little bit better lifespan rather than some of these big heat waves that burn into the street and helps. They separate the asphalt from the gravel that's in that street. In the winter times, the past several years, we've had kind of a mild winter, not as many snow events as we've had in some years past, so that's been a good
You're
thing.
not trying to jinx us, are you?
The kids want the days off, so we
Okay.
want to have some of those big winter events. So, but that does have an effect too. The freeze thaw, that you'll see a lot of potholes when we have some of those winter events. So
Now, when you treat the roads during the winter time, what is the compound that you're using for that?
So in the winter, what's called cold patch. So it's a type of asphalt that doesn't have to be heated up to be able to put in those potholes. So it's a temporary fix. Then we'll come back later, whether it's with a street program or larger patch with the standard asphalt that you see in the summer times.
Now, you talked about some of the street projects. What do you have any other updates about the 2023 street project updates?
Yeah. So the standard ones, they just finished the striping just this past week. So we are complete with our 3 streets for the standard program. And the program that with the grants for Kemper Meadow, Winton Road, and Kemper, those are about by the end of the month, we should have those, the final paving and then the final striping after that. So before winter gets here, we're going to have all nice new roads there.
Well, that sounds great. And also, I know you have to go with competitive bidding in order to get the selected contractors. Is that correct?
That is correct. Each year we advertise out to the public, and typically we get about 5 bids in. So these are larger contractors, not just your smaller one that would do a driveway, but the ones that can handle the large streets. So we get about 5 bids in a year. We analyze those. It's based on price and quality and timing. So it's not necessarily always the lowest bid, it's the lowest and best bid.
Now, what about, you can't believe it, but 2024 street projects? 2024 is coming.
Yes, so for 2024, we are in the budget period right now and coming up with those. We have actually some more grants. So there's a couple projects next year that are based on grant funding. There is another SORTA grant that Ken Road is the next road that has the bus route on it. And once we complete that road, we will have hit all of our current bus routes within the past several years of repaving, putting in the new bus stops and bike racks and those kind of things. We also, the one everybody seems to be wondering about, we did receive some grant funding for Sharon Road. It's probably our worst road in the city. It lies at the bottom of a hill, next to great parks. And so that's one of those that has drainage issues that fails quicker. So that is something that we will be doing next year as well. In addition to those two, we'll have our standard street program. With that standard street program, we are looking to do Havensport and Raphael Place. Those are longer runs of street. We try to get, with these grant funds plus these others, about 2 miles in the year. There are almost 70 miles of roads in the city, so we would like to do more, but we can only do how much the funding will allow.
No one ever realizes how many miles are in a city. They think, well, it's a lot less than that, but that is pretty accurate. I was saying 70 miles. That's quite impressive. Now, something that you have in Forest Park are the speed cushions. Let's talk about the speed cushions. Not that you drive fast, but let's talk about the speed cushions.
So this is a project that was brought up by our city council, that some other areas, it was brought up, hey, can we do speed bumps? So that started the conversation. Speed bumps are not as recommended because they go across the whole street. They are more permanent, so the snow plows, you have problems with them hitting them. Your emergency vehicles, fire trucks, they would have to slow down and stop at these. What the latest way of doing these is called speed cushions. Those are separate pieces to allow for, let's say, a fire truck can drive straight on through. It has a wider wheelbase, so it will not hit these bumps in the road, and they can keep their speed and get to where they need to go. The standard car or truck that an individual has, their wheelbase is a little smaller, so they will have to slow down and hit these. We started off with our first one on Waycross Road over near Mill. That is one area. It's a 25-mile-an-hour road, and the studies we have done is there's hardly anybody that drives 25 miles an hour through there. That's also one of the areas we've heard the most complaints about speeders through. So our police department's been out there. They've given plenty of tickets. They've put out their speed signs, but it's still an area that needed addressed. So that's our first place for, we'll call it a test run. We are planning on doing more. Since we put in that first one, we receive a couple calls a day about, hey, what about my street? So the next steps are looking at each of those streets, whether it's a recommendation from a citizen or something that our police department has seen, and we will do a speed study and a traffic study on those streets to see if it actually will work or not. These are in place where we can remove them. So in the wintertime, we can remove them for the snow period, and we don't have to worry about our snow plows hitting them, and then put them back in the spring. So.
Now, you talked about the funding. You talked about, of course, you have an operational budget that you work from, but you also have grant money. Let's talk about what kind of grant money. You mentioned SORTA, but what other options do you have available to you?
Sure. So the SORTA grant, that's something new that's just come up over the past several years. One of the other types of grants that we get on a rotating basis comes from the state itself. So there's state grants. We are in a group called OKI, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. So there's some larger grants that we have received through them as well that are based on things that are beneficial to all the states and some of the larger projects. Also, there are some local county type grants as well. So we've been looking at under every rock we can find, anywhere that we can get some additional funding, even all the way up to the federal level with some of the new programs that there's money that filters through the states that we are trying to tap into as well.
So you mentioned states, you mentioned the operation. Do you have any federal grants that are available to cities?
So some of them are not directly. So the federal will send the money down to the states and let them determine. But we do have one that's in the pipeline that's through the federal. Our mayor went out to Washington, D.C. and got some information, and we're working on trying to get some of that right now.
Well, that's very progressive to do that. Now, we've covered about the street projects of 2023 and 2024. Anything else you'd like to be covering, Scott?
Yeah. Just one of the things, this is what we look at. We look at least a 5-year capital plan. So with the studies that we've done, looking at the streets, we try to project ahead. Doesn't always work. Sometimes something's more emergency related that we will have to look for and pave a street earlier than we expect. But we are constantly looking at these and taking comments from the citizens. So we are now looking at bringing back a sidewalk program. We used to have it where we'd go through, mark sidewalks, and have residents, they would have to pay a portion of the fees for that. When we ran through the time of COVID, that slowed down a little bit because we wanted to try to help out the citizens a little bit. So we're looking at bringing some of that back to be able to fix more sidewalks than we have in the past.
Sidewalks seem to be more susceptible to the weather conditions. They crack easily and all that type of thing. I know in my neighborhood that's been an issue for years.
So one of the big things, as I mentioned, we're a tree city and we're proud of it. But what trees do, they have roots, They grow everywhere, so that's one of the big problems with the sidewalks is the roots will pop up the sidewalk, and then you have trip hazards, and those are some of the things we really want to watch out for and try to fix because we have a lot of residents that like to walk. We like the fact that we have it's pretty much sidewalks on just about every street in the city. So it's been great planning throughout the years to be able to have a pedestrian and a bike available city.
So if the residents need some information, more information, either they can come to City Council, but they can go to the city website. They can also go to your Facebook page, and I'm sure that's been very active.
Yes, and through our website, we have a report of concern page. So anytime you see a pothole, a sidewalk that needs repaired, any of these kind of things, you can easily just type in the information. You can be anonymous if you want, or you can leave your name and email address for a follow-up.
Well, Scott, it's been a pleasure to have you with us on a very special episode of Off the Cuff. And I'm Kurt Radel, reminding you that, as Scott said, you can go to the website, you can go to Facebook, and get more information. Scott, thank you so much, very much for being here today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm Kurt Radel, Waycross Community Media Coordinator, and I thank you for joining us, and have a good day.